empire rises.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there
we
anymore.
must push it back before it is too late.
Be quiet. Because I've got something I want to do. Alright. So, I've got this video I'm going to watch to react to. Haven't done that yet. So, we're going to do that. This is WoWs Forgotten Secret. Let's see what this is about. Let me turn the game volume down first, though.
Wasn't planning on making this, folks. However, to say that the last week has been an unexpected surprise would be an understatement. For the last month or so, I've been busy on my real life channel, talking about important topics.
Oh yeah, for anyone who just got there, it's WoWs Forgotten Secret. It's by House Hexagon. I watched another one of their videos last week, I think it was, which was WoW's Darkest Secret. It was really good, so I want to see what they're doing here.
Such as Hungarian elections and house prices. You know, as you do. But I couldn't help but notice that this channel had almost doubled in subscribers in a single day, from 10,000 to over 17,000 at the time of recording. Needless to say, I was quite surprised as I hadn't made anything here in over a month, leaving me very confused and left asking, who are you people? In a desperate attempt to find out where you all came from, I decided to have a look at my analytics, and I noticed that a video I made almost a year ago now had received a sudden increase in views of 2,100%. When I saw the top comment, I knew immediately what had happened.
Yep.
You know, folks, it's a very strange experience to watch someone watch you, who you've been watching for a long time. Back in the day, I was a massive WoW achievement hunter, the sort of player who just had to get everything. I first discovered Asmongold around 2015, as I used to create by far the most straightforward and easy to follow achievement guides that there were available.
Now, I was aware that Asmongold had reacted to the first one, but I haven't watched his reaction. I probably should.
Now, I don't use Twitch, mostly as I find Twitch chat to be the most annoying thing mankind has ever invented. Pog champ! However, I can't deny that, clearly, it's a very popular platform. And so, much like how I have to thank Asmongold for helping me get the Glory of the Firelands Raider achievement at 5 o'clock in the morning 7 years ago, I also have to thank him for bringing what would have been yet another forgotten production of mine in front of over 500,000 people. Truth be told, I had completely forgotten all about this video. It was just a bit of creative writing I made out of frustration. I was, and still am, baffled to see it receive such a positive response. From Urban Dictionary definitions to German news articles. Yeah, it's been very interesting to read all your comments, as well as see the Google Trends spike for the SoCal Lady Killer. However, this whole thing has admittedly put me in a bit of an awkward situation. You see, over the last few days, I've been inundated with request after request to make more creepypastas, just like Stone Talon. And my response to that is, no. You see, the reason why you enjoyed Stone Talon wasn't just because of the writing, but simply because you didn't know whether it was true or not. Had I told you the truth right at the start, you would have all Alt-F4'd out of there in Guinness World Record time. Make no mistake, I could easily write a ton more stories like it. The Butcher of Badlands, the Rapist of Redridge, the Molester of Loch Madam.
Wow.
But it simply wouldn't be the same.
That dude's
as
close.
Deep down, you'd know the truth. Not only that, but I don't even play WoW anymore, which I'm pretty sure doesn't really require an explanation. Seeing what was once my favourite game, community, and company devolve into the absolute disgrace that it is today is something that, frankly, I'd rather forget about entirely. And can you really blame me? However, Even if I have no plans to ever return back to WoW, I feel as if I can't just simply ignore all of your kind words. So, I wanted to make something for you all as a thank you. Consider it a sort of one-off bowing out gift for all you WoW heads.
Okay.
Now, as I said, this isn't a creepypasta, but instead a rabbit hole. I said that Stone Talon was WoW's darkest secret, but truth be told, there is actually a real darkest secret about World of Warcraft that I have never seen anyone else even talk about.
I'm taking bets. Do y'all think he's gonna get us again? Futures glitch, I think y'all were here. Do y'all think he's gonna get us again?
In fact, it's been out in the open now for years, and yet seemingly passed everyone by. Perhaps it's not so much a dark secret, but a forgotten secret. I know, you're skeptical. So, without further ado, go into full screen mode and let me explain, as this time, it's real. Oh, and folks, try not to tab out this time, will ya?
Alright. He has interesting intros. I like his intros. So far, for the couple of videos of his I've seen. I should see about others. Okay.
9/11. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York were destroyed in a terrorist attack. Days later,
is
President George Bush
not where I
announces
was
the beginning of
expecting it
the
to
War on
start.
Terror, with the aim of bringing those responsible to justice. During this time, President Bush's approval rating was around 90%, an unprecedented high in American politics. The people were angry
Something real quick. There.
and wanted revenge. 10 years later in 2011, President Barack Obama formally announces the death of the leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. With the news of this announcement, the American people and their allies around the world celebrated. After 10 long years, it seemed that this war on terror was finally about to come to an end. But it didn't. The modus operandi of American foreign policy had changed from merely eliminating potential terrorist threats into what became known as nation building, with the aim of transforming countries in the Middle East from being dictatorships into being democracies.
This is all
Afghanistan,
accurate, yes.
which went from being under the sole rule of the Taliban to now having its
Regardless of whether you agree with this or not, this is, yes, accurate.
own elections, being a prime example of such a transformation. During this time, the American public's attitude to war deeply started to sour. In their eyes, if it truly was mission accomplished, then why was the government still spending trillions of taxpayer dollars fighting such overseas wars when their own people at home were struggling? 10 more years later in 2021, and the war on terror would ceremoniously come to a close, yet perhaps not in the way that many thought it would. Within hours of the US military leaving Afghanistan, the Taliban had once again seized control within hours. The failure of trying to forcefully change a nation's foundations so radically were now on full display for the world to see. The war on terror was a tragedy for almost everyone involved, with thousands of lives needlessly lost, trillions of dollars spent in vain, and an entire part of the world now destabilized beyond comprehension. For many of us who grew up during the 2000s and 2010s, it somewhat goes without saying that such events have foreshadowed our entire lives.
That's true.
But a question you're probably
I was
asking
in high
yourselves
school
is, what the hell does this have to
the
do with World
2000s.
of Warcraft? Well, a lot more than you might think, actually. 1 month after 9/11, on October 26, 2001, President George Bush implemented what became colloquially known as the Patriot Act. In its own words, this was an act to deter and punish terrorist acts in the United States and across the globe, and to enhance law enforcement investigatory tools.
Yep.
When the Patriot Act was first passed, most people didn't think anything of it. After all, at the time, America had just been attacked, and in many people's eyes, if the government was going to do something about it, then that could only be a good thing. But the sudden combination of this blind trust, hunger for revenge, and sudden rise in patriotism created an almost perfect environment for opportunistic bureaucrats to
Let me just say, I hate it. I was in high school, and I thought the Patriot Act was a terrible idea. Terrible. I never liked it.
expand the palette of powers. And that's exactly
It's still
what
a
they
terrible
did
idea.
via the Patriot Act. The first half of the Patriot Act, to deter and punish terrorist acts, was obviously most effective and required. However, the second half, consisting of enhancing law enforcement investigatory tools, would turn out to be much more sinister than it was presented. The US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand comprise the vast majority of the English-speaking Western world. Being strongly culturally and economically interlinked, these nations tend to cooperate much more with one another than what would usually be the case. One of these means of cooperation is in the form of intelligence, whereby they form what is known as the Five Eyes, an intelligence alliance that behind the scenes works together with one another to achieve their mutual aims. As you may remember, back in 2013, a man known as Edward Snowden would quit his job in American intelligence and flee to Russia for asylum, whereby there he would reveal a bombshell beyond belief. Snowden disclosed an estimated 15,000 classified Australian intelligence files, 60,000 classified British intelligence files, and a staggering 1.7 million classified American intelligence files. And to say that these files were damning would be an understatement. The English-speaking Western nations, who so proudly proclaim themselves to be the so-called free world, had, behind the curtain, created a dystopian surveillance system that even rivaled that of China. Now, I'd be here all day if I was to go into everything that such files revealed, such as the PRISM program, whereby, according to leaked slides, large American corporations such as Microsoft and Apple had seemingly agreed to become providers, whereby they'd hand intelligence agencies information about their customers, such as emails, chats, videos, photos, data, and much, much more. All such companies officially deny such involvement even to this day, mind you, so I'll leave it up to you on who you want to believe. But as stated, the sheer extent and vastness of the Snowden leaks are beyond belief, and with almost 2 million files out there in circulation, could span numerous hours worth of explanations on their own. However, out of all these 2 million documents, there was one that was well and truly unbelievable. It did get some media attention when it was found, but not much, and was, ultimately, forgotten about. I'm going to show you this document now. This is the first page of an 82-page document that's been colloquially nicknamed NSA Documents on Games and Virtual Worlds. As you can see, this document was given the security clearance of top secret, which means that for most of you, had you laid your eyes on this just a few years ago, you'd be spending a lot of time behind bars. For those who are unaware of what a top secret security clearance pertains, in the United States, the Department of Defense has 3 clearly distinct categories of security clearance. Confidential, which is applied to information which could cause some damage to national security. Secret, which is applied to information which could cause serious damage to national security. And top secret, which is applied to information which could cause exceptionally grave damage to national security. Obtaining a top secret security clearance is incredibly difficult and can take many months just to obtain, with numerous background checks or situational qualifications required. Only an estimated 800,000 people, or 0.2% of the American population, is said to have had a top secret security clearance. However, it should be noted that merely having obtained such a security clearance does not necessarily mean that said individual automatically has access to all the information within said clearance level. as such information is often still only provided on a strict need-to-know basis. Bottom line is that prior to the Snowden leak, hardly anyone but very high-level American NSA, British GCHQ, and other Five Eyes intelligence operatives would have ever laid their eyes on this document. This was never meant to be seen by the public. The first page reads, "Get in the game with target development for World of Warcraft online gaming." Although online gaming may seem like an innocuous form of entertainment, when the basic features and capabilities are examined, it could potentially become a target-rich communication network.
What?
Online gaming represents a technology that is rapidly growing in popularity worldwide. World of Warcraft, WoW, is one with an impressive following of gaming enthusiasts, with over 10 million users worldwide. The exact date when this document was made is unknown. However, it is believed to have been produced sometime between 2007 and 2008, aka the Burning Crusade expansion. We know this not just from the comments throughout, but that it specifically mentions the 10 million subscriber mark, which was achieved around that time. Quite the difference from today, where I'd be surprised if WoW even had 10,000 subscribers, but besides the point. You're probably wondering why American intelligence agencies are writing documents about World of Warcraft. Well, after 9/11, it goes without saying that the American government and its subordinate intelligence agencies became most paranoid. During this time, online video games were still mostly considered to be a novelty for the youth. However, as people from the millennial generation who had grown up with online games started to join such agencies, it seems that the revelation that video games could be used for potential criminal activity seemingly startled them, as they had not yet understood, or even thought, that video games could even be used for such nefarious means, leading them to investigate further. This slide shows that the NSA analysed numerous different video game genres, from first-person shooters, educational games, simulations, mixed or alternate realities, MMOs, and strategy games, and gave them a traffic light grade based on how effective they would be in numerous key areas for criminals to take advantage of.
Okay, so let's pause a second, look at this. So, the first-person shooter, they think it's good for simulation and training. What? No. Propaganda and influence, okay, maybe. Tool for recruitment, maybe. But simulation and training, maybe now? With, like, well, I don't know, because the way the VR controllers work is weird. That's weird. Educational, okay, so educational is good for propaganda and influence, simulation, okay. MMORPGs, what? They think it's good? What? This, what? Y'all.
As you can see, all genres had some flaws, except for the MMO, which was seemingly a perfect attack vector for criminal activity. Thus, WoW, being by far the most popular MMO of the time, would naturally become a place of interest. The NSA had three main fears when it came to video games and their potential: communication, propaganda, and recruitment. Throughout this, I'm going to tell you how the NSA planned to deal with such fears,
I don't like it,
and how
but it makes sense.
may have been affected by them. Starting with communication. Let's read. WoW may be providing SIGINT targets a way to hide in plain sight. Targets have been spotted receiving no reply emails from gaming providers, and GCHQ analysts have correlated known SIGINT targets to online gaming events. The new Mission Development Center at H.I.P.S, the Global Network Exploitation and the Applied Research Special Topics Organization at GCHQ, are working together to filter the Fawnsat survey environment for this traffic and extract various types of WoW metadata for SIGINT development and network knowledge enrichment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's quite a mouthful. Let's break it down. SIGINT means signals intelligence, essentially the art of intercepting signals and, if necessary, decrypting them to reveal their message. Whereas the United States has PRISM, here in the United Kingdom we have Echelon, which has been described as a global network of electronic spy stations that can eavesdrop on telephones, faxes, and computers. It can even track bank accounts. This information is stored in Echelon computers, which can keep millions of records on individuals. Officially, however, Echelon doesn't exist. Echelon's collection of satellite data is referred to internally as FORNSAT, which is an abbreviation for Foreign Satellite Collection. Essentially, it seems that sometime in 2007, GCHQ found that an unidentified person of interest, or a group of them, was playing World of Warcraft, and actively infiltrated Blizzard's servers in order to sniff out such targets, as confirmed by the following paragraphs. Communication is at the core of online gaming, and in WoW there are many ways to communicate and interact in the virtual world. A player has a character ID and can join different groups. GCHQ recently asked MHS's new Mission Development Center to support an online gaming research effort focusing on WoW. Eager to assist in a new potential area of target development, the NMDC discussed metadata needs with GCHQ in order to enable WoW target and network research in the FORNSAT area. The NMDC engaged Snort, an open source packet sniffing software, which runs on all FORNSAT survey packet data to filter cut WoW packets. GCHQ provided several WoW protocol parsing scripts to process the traffic and produce Warcraft metadata. By fusing information from different systems, databases, and resources, GCHQ has correlated target entities to WoW login events, and continues to uncover potential SIGINT value by identifying accounts, characters, and guilds related to Islamic extremist groups, nuclear proliferation, and arms dealing. But wait a minute. Islamic extremist groups, nuclear proliferation, and arms dealing? In World of Warcraft? Surely this must be an over-paranoid exaggeration. Well,
you know, I hate to say it, but I suppose it could be used for all of that, or could have at one time. I don't know that that would be possible. But with it not having been even on the radar, I could see the possibility. Did I see any evidence of it myself? No. But I wouldn't, because I'm not involved with an extremist group of any sort. Or arms dealing or anything like that.
well, actually, maybe not. When people are asked to imagine where they think criminal activity takes place online, they will typically respond with the deep web, a hidden series of servers that exist seemingly independently from the rest of the internet that can only be accessed using certain special software. For example, if we were to load up my super secure virtual machine on my super secure private operating system with my super secure private browser, we can see that someone here is trying to sell a weapon of mass destruction for some Bitcoin. Now, the criminal behind this might think that they're being smart by conducting such an illicit transaction in this way. After all, in their mind, the payment could be transferred and untraceable via cryptocurrency, and they would never get caught, as they're using the deep web's criminally hosted servers as to avoid identification. But the reality, of course, is anything but. You see, by merely using the deep web in the first place, this gentleman has already placed a target on himself. As let's face it, nobody uses the deep web for anything other than criminal activity. Should an intelligence agency successfully manage to infiltrate a deep web server, which is something that happens all the time, then they will have access to numerous different signals intelligence that will lead back to a huge number of potential criminals. B.
Yes, Mr. Hexagon.
Infiltrate this server, please.
At once, Mr. Hexagon.
Okay.
Server infiltrated.
Wonderful. As we can see, this gentleman's IP address is now exposed, meaning that all intelligence agencies have to do is correlate customer information with said ISP, and he's in the bag.
Mr. Hexagon, we have a problem. IP address is from a known VPN.
Oh no! The target has shielded his IP address from identification via using a virtual private network. Who cares? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this production, then the chances are that you also watch a ton of videos online. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you seen a video that's been directly sponsored via VPN?
A lot.
A lot. And it seems like ever since around 2017 and onwards, every
I said it
content
right before
creator and their
him.
mom is being sponsored by them. But how? I mean, VPNs aren't exactly a lucrative business. Where do these firms get all their money to splash in mere marketing alone? Well, admittedly, and this is just a thought of mine, but I strongly believe that a large number of VPN firms are either directly or indirectly ran by intelligence agencies.
Okay.
Why? Well, let's think about it. VPN technology makes it quite a bit more difficult for intelligence agencies to undergo SIGINT. However, the technology isn't ever going to go anywhere, and simply making its use illegal, shockingly, isn't going to deter criminals from using it. So, by simply operating the VPNs from in the shadows, they can create a false illusion of security for such criminals, which can then be used against them. Again, just a thought of mine, but either way. The ultimate point here is that for online
That
criminals,
would be interesting.
by trying to mask
Like-
their activities via the use of technology such as the deep web and possibly VPNs, they inadvertently make themselves even more of a target. However, should such criminals do their business in a place whereby nobody would expect, such as a video game, then they simply blend in with the rest of the environment with no
Yeah.
suspicion. Essentially, they are H.I.P.S, hidden in plain sight. WoW certainly provides entertainment for a large number of people worldwide, but its gaming format can provide a virtual organizational platform for potential SIGINT targets as well. Furthermore, this technology can assist the target and simultaneously assist the SIGINT community in tracking that target. The WoW gaming infrastructure provides ample information for network development through the data passed through WoW messages, such as country and time zone information, local IP addresses, and realm server addresses. In terms of active target development, there are clear parallels. Traditional SIGINT development may follow emails, chat, and buddy lists, whereas WoW target development may follow character IDs and logins, gaming communication channels, and guilds. MHS and GCHQ will continue to develop and collaborate on this potentially lucrative venue.
Okay.
A question I have to ask is, why is it that we now live in such a low-trust society that our intelligence agencies have actually become so paranoid that they went looking for Bin Laden in Nomragon? Wouldn't it instead be wise to reflect on how we ended up in this nightmare situation in the first place? As opposed to, you know, spying on everything that moves? Of course it would. But ladies and gentlemen, our nations are ran by idiots. Essentially, much like how the
Yeah.
NSA harvested unsuspecting
they
customers'
are.
information from corporations via the PRISM program, it seems they also not just planned, but actively did, infiltrate Blizzard's servers. Not just to look for specific targets, but to also actively collect metadata on every single World of Warcraft player. Which essentially means that anything you've ever said while in Azeroth, even as far back as over a decade ago, could be stored on an agency's server somewhere, with the potential to be easily tracked back to you.
Bruh, there's gonna be so much ERP in those servers. So much.
Now, with all due respect to the NSA, if you're going to bother looking for terrorists on World of Warcraft, aka looking for a needle in a haystack,
Most of it centered in Goldshire.
then you should, at the very least, actually make yourselves useful while you're here, and instead, oh, I don't know, deal with the army of perverted groomers that have been operating shamelessly out in the open within the Goldshire Inn, plaguing our beloved roleplay
What'd I just
servers
say?
for years. Cheers. But regardless,
Oh gosh.
if you think that's weird, wait until we get on to propaganda. Back in the early days of WoW, machinimas used to be a massive deal. Those of you who have played the game for a long time may remember gems such as Illegal Danish, Snacky's Journal, or my personal favourite, Of Time Gnomes.
In the year 2022, World of Warcraft had just released its 7th expansion pack.
Jesus Christ, we're getting old. For those who don't know, machinimas were essentially in-game movies, acted out with characters, a story, etc, etc. There's still many made today, but nowhere near as much as there used to be. I've made a few machinimas myself, and they're always a lot of fun to make. The sheer amount of zones, models, and armour in WoW makes it an almost perfect game for such creative endeavours. Which, according to the NSA, also made it a threat. As bizarre as this may sound, the NSA was seemingly obsessed with machinimas, with their documents meticulously detailing not just what they are, but also how they're made, even name-dropping a popular piece of recording software at the time known as H.I.P.S. In their words, gaming can serve as a platform for propaganda video production. For example, machinima is filmmaking within the real-time 3D virtual environment of a video game. All that is required is a game and a desktop computer. Terrorists could easily exploit this technology. Through the use of virtual characters and audio mashups, a terrorist could anonymously create machinima films that included speeches, updates, and briefings. Additionally, one could use machinimas to create a likable militant hero with whom their target audience could identify. The NSA actually believed that Al-Qaeda was going to use World of Warcraft and other MMOs to create pro-jihadi machinimas. They even went so far as to express concern about the huge increase in GPU capabilities during the 2000s, citing that such increased realism may potentially make such propaganda even more effective. Now, I don't know about you chaps, but in all my time playing World of Warcraft, I have never come across any of Bin Laden's machinimas. However, as humorous as it may sound, at the end of the day, it is an intelligence agency's job to identify all possible attack vectors such as this, even if, ultimately, they may sound ridiculous. So, as odd as it may sound, it is understandable that they would be at least somewhat concerned about such possibilities. However, what is truly baffling is how they plan to counter such potential propaganda. Countering in-game propaganda. Countering extremist propaganda in the game space can be achieved in part by being an active game player. Establishing an in-game presence allows for virtual interfacing, information exchanges, and developing influential relationships with both adversaries and allies. In-game interaction also can help shape real-life attitudes and perceptions. That's right, folks. You know that one guy in your guild who just wouldn't stop asking questions all the time? I'm just saying. Honestly, at first, this to me just seemed like some guy at the NSA who was addicted to WoW at the time. Desperately trying to come up with ways he could make his bosses think that him leveling up his gnome mage at work was actually a good idea. But it gets weirder. In-game assets might form partnerships with celebrity avatars. Establishing an in-game presence would enable identification of players, their guilds, and other common interest groups. These relationships can be exploited to facilitate viral message spread or in-game dialogue for counter-propaganda purposes.
Okay.
Wow. Now, before you all start freaking out that your favourite streamers and creators are all secretly on the federal payroll, remember that this document was written over a decade and a half ago. But besides the point, the fact that the NSA actually considered going into WoW with the sole purpose to manipulate innocent civilians with bizarre psychological operations is beyond unbelievable. But here it is, in black and white. But again, all of that is nothing compared to recruitment. The NSA strongly believed that terrorist groups could potentially use video games for recruitment purposes. Now, why the hell Al-Qaeda would want a bunch of World of Warcraft players under their belt, I don't know. However, in all likelihood, this logic might have been a matter of projection. If I told you to think of a first-person shooter, I'm sure there's many that you could name. But in the early 2000s, there was an FPS juggernaut that not many people know about, known as America's Army. Now, despite looking like a typical FPS, what makes America's Army so peculiar is not necessarily the game itself, but who made it. The actual US Army itself. America's Army came out in 2002, and despite being a fully fledged AAA experience, was available for download completely for free.
Okay.
Now, this might not seem unusual by today's standards, with free-to-play games being all over the place. But back then, this was almost unheard of.
That's
But
true.
Why?
That's very
exactly? Why would the American government choose to finance an FPS game of all things and deliver it out for free? I mean, for Christ's sake, this is a country that fights tooth and nail as to not give its own people healthcare, so if they're giving away something for free, there just has to be a catch. And yeah, the catch was, it was a recruitment tool. Online gaming can serve as a recruitment tool. 28% of players logging on to play its America's Army online game also visited the corresponding recruitment site. But hey, that's not exactly surprising news. I mean, come on, a free game created by the American government that's a military simulator, I mean, it's not exactly like they're trying to hide it. Now, if they were trying to use third-party games as subtle propaganda, well then, we'd have a problem.
Mr. Hexagon,
Yes, B.
they were doing that.
What?
There's someone watching me.
Why did I just say that in time with him?
I can tell.
Another opportunity to focus IC counter-terrorism efforts in the game space is new or modified game development to compete with extremist groups operating in the game space. Working with commercial partners, students, and others in the game space to develop a competitive game and attract the target audience would aid this effort. Market research could provide valuable insights into the interests and habits of game players from a particular target audience. Using focus groups throughout the game production cycle would also help to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the story, graphics, and gameplay. Student groups could also fuel new game development. Many colleges and universities now host programs that
This is
focus on
weird.
game design and production. Asset-sponsored scholarships and incentives
give
could
it a
be
like,
used to
though.
encourage students to develop appropriately themed games. That's right, the NSA was planning to actively infiltrate the entire gaming industry
That's
and
so
create games
weird.
with the specific purpose of being propaganda, in order to sway how their players thought about real-life geopolitical events. Needless to say, video games,
You know what?
especially
Something just popped up. I gotta see what it
entire
was.
gaming industry, and create games with the specific purpose of being propaganda,
Oh,
in order
okay.
to sway how their players
I didn't
thought
catch it. That's
about
my fault.
real-life geopolitical events. Needless to say, video games, especially MMOs, were taken very seriously by such agencies. I haven't even delved into how they meticulously converted the value of the top MMOs in-game currencies into real-life currencies.
Dark Age of Camelot is there. Dark Age of Camelot is there. I approve.
Or how they did deep dives into the psychological effects that games have on their players. Or the eerily
Not
accurate
of what they're
predictions on
doing,
the
I just-
rising prominence that mobile
makes me happy
gaming
to
would
see it,
have
their
on
name
the industry
at
in
all.
the years that followed. At the time of recording, this document has been in open circulation for over 8 years. What it contains and the methodologies used have almost certainly changed since it was leaked, as otherwise I wouldn't have felt comfortable even mentioning it. But the point still stands. When the general public think of their intelligence agencies, they think of very smart people working hard behind the scenes to keep us safe. But borderline everything here has nothing to do with keeping people safe, but is simply flat-out surveillance and even psychological manipulation. I mean, let's go over everything we've learned here. 1. GCHQ actively collected World of Warcraft metadata without Blizzard or their customers' knowledge. 2. The NSA planned to send agents into games to spread in-game counter-propaganda to players. 3. The NSA plan to specifically form relations with highly influential players within said games to exploit them. And 4. The NSA plan to actively manipulate the gaming industry to facilitate game development at large.
Okay.
I mean, Jesus Christ. People play video games, especially MMOs, as an escape from reality. A place whereby they can just zone out and immerse themselves within a fantasy world. And yet, what this document proves is that even within video games, no one is safe from the surveillance and psychological manipulations of their so-called free world governments. So, this is probably the part where you're expecting me to say, hey, don't worry, I was just making it all up. But no, sorry. Everything I've read throughout this production has been 100% legitimate, and I challenge you to do your own research and see for yourself. You all wanted a creepypasta, but guess what? You've been living in one this whole time. Sadly, however, it's not a murder thriller, but a dystopian society that's in denial. I mean, forget Edward Snowden a moment. Why is it that Julian Assange, a man whose only crime was revealing corruption within the US military, was forced to live in an Ecuadorian embassy for almost a decade? Meanwhile, politicians like Hillary Clinton can go on mainstream media and psychotically laugh at murdering other heads of state.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Most people are, still to this day, ignorant of the specific details in how their lives are being immorally surveilled and manipulated. And sadly, as most Westerners are so demotivated, distracted, and atomized, they simply just accept such a scenario, rather than actually doing anything about it. I imagine that had these leaks came out in the early 2020s as opposed to the early 2010s, due to the current heightened distrust in our governments, perhaps they would have been more effective. But nevertheless, I hope that this production helps open one's eyes into learning the cold hard truth about how our governments really operate. Because ladies and gentlemen, people can only bury their heads in the sand for so long. But the facts are that the way people think our society works, and the way that it actually works, are clearly two very different things. And frankly, it's time for people to wake up and get smart, because at this rate, things are only going to get much, much worse. Recently, the US Department of Homeland Security announced that it will create a new Disinformation Governance Board. Let me ask you, dear viewer, after everything I've shown you here today, would anyone seriously trust the American government to tell you the truth? Because the way I see it is, if they were planning to do this to us back then what are they actually doing to us now?
To be fair, I don't trust any government to tell me the truth. Okay. Well, that... Oh, we're on the login screen. I got logged out. That's fine. That was not quite what I was expecting. Not as fun and murder mystery as the last one, but it is disturbing, to say the least, because, I mean, he's absolutely right. What's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to do something and it's not working. Yeah, no, that's... I don't know what's causing that error. I was wondering where he was going with that, starting off where he did, and none of this really surprises me at all. It really doesn't. It just... It's the sort of thing that, like, you don't think about. But at least for me, when I hear it, it's just like, oh, of course that's what they're doing. Why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't the government be trying to infiltrate video games? and use them as propaganda. I mean, yeah. I don't even know where else to go from that. I'm not at all surprised. It wouldn't surprise me if they aren't doing something similar. If they're not still doing it, they might be. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you surprised by this? Do you think that there could be something still going on? Or do you think it's an abandoned project and they're going to move on to something else? Regardless, I don't know. That was an interesting video though. Alright, so with that,